designer spends anywhere from 1 to 3 months with the director just coming up with the idea and the look of what they need. By the time it gets to me in the costume shop, we have at least a drawing of some sort with some research behind it, and the designer presents the entire idea behind the show to me with a kind of a wish list of everything that they want to be built from scratch, and then we just talk about really how to achieve the look of the show from beginning to end with budget and time in mind. And then we come up with a list of what's built, and then a list of everything else and how and where to find it. And then at that point the designer starts shopping for fabric and sourcing things out, and us in the costume shop then starts by building the patterns for each of the garments, and the patterns are then taken and made once out of what we call mock-up, out of a cheap fabric, and we fit it on the actor, and then they're adjusted and made out of the real fabric and fit again, and then we finish them with all the trim and embellishments, and those are the build items. And then everything that's pulled or purchased or borrowed either goes through a simple alteration process to just make it fit, or it goes through some kind of process like where it has to get dyed, the collar recut, the lapel reshaped, in order to make it look even close to what the designer wants. The build process in the shop usually is about 4 weeks, but from the first time the designer starts with a script could be 5 or 6 months.
This is a coat for Ian Gould. He's doing a slip stitch to hem it, and when we fit him, we only fit him in this layer, and we set a hem with this layer. So then I went in and set the lining into the coat. We based everything so that in the fitting the designer can see where the buttons are marked, where the goal line is. There's pleats in the back here. We marked the pleats so that the designer can see all of that, and that way she can say move it in, move it out. Nothing's permanent that way. Start to finish, 60 hours. I'm making a Franken coat because it started out as a women's petite suit jacket, and I've changed the lapel shape and the collar shape and a bunch of different things to make it look like what we want it to look like.
This is a robe for the character of Valentine that was actually used in the previous production in 1996, and Star wants this fabric trim to be changed to something a little more looking like this production. It's a Dupioni silk with embroidered flowers.
I am doing the finishing work on a robe that we built from scratch for D.A. Smith for the character of Malvolio. It's a woolen robe with a brocade facing. What I'm doing right now is stitching the facing back into the garment so it stays together. I patterned it and cut it out. It's a fancy brocade bathrobe. The most challenging piece was putting this pretty binding finish along the edge of the lapel and constructing the under collar, which has some hair canvas in it to give it a little more structure. So the lapel is more of a coat lapel on a bathrobe.
For me, my favorite part of the build process is being able to kind of negotiate with the designer what's built and what's found, and then in the end seeing it all put together and it looks like the whole thing is built. You know, so we sort of trick the audience into thinking everything was built from scratch. So it's tricky to pull something and make it look like everything else that you're building, but it's kind of amazing between the designer and the draper and the shop manager and everyone in the shop being able to make everything look so cohesive. And so it's cool from a shop manager standpoint that a lot of times I see the design from the very first standpoint where it's just almost chicken scratches on a page, and then it processed through to the end where it's this whole complete unit, you know, that comes from all over the place, really.